Hello friends and welcome to the first in a new series that we like to call Town Transfer Talk. The clue is in the title. It's going to be a weekly chat we're going to have about transfer chat emanating out of Ipswich Town, separating the fact from the fiction. I'm Mark Heath, I'm your host, and with me the two guys in the know, working the phones pretty much every second of the day, Andy Warren, Stuart Watson. Great to have you with us, boys. And let's start first of all, shall we, with what has actually happened this week in terms of ins and outs. There has been a departure. Young defender Corey Ndaba has gone out on loan to Ayr United. Andy Warren, first of all, good move for him.
Yeah, long overdue. I think they've been trying to get him out somewhere for the last two transfer windows prior to this one. This is the third one where they've been trying to do it. Couldn't move him in the summer because everyone got injured. He was obviously needed here, played a lot of pre-season, played some good football at the start of the season as well. And prior to that, he'd been on some non-league loans in England with Chelmsford and Hemel Hempstead as well, which meant he couldn't go to Ayr this time last year. But yeah, he's gone. He needs to play games and he needs to do what Luke Wolfenden did, I think, which is go away, play some games, bloody that nose, and come back. Hopefully we're sitting here in August talking about Corey Ndaba being a serious prospect for the first team.
And there have been some returns as well, haven't there? Just 3 young players coming back just to dot the I's and cross the T's, just to let people know who they are.
Bailey Clements and Kai Brown are back, having barely kicked a ball, really, sadly, at Dagenham. I think Brown played more than Clements did. And Harry Wright's been in Sweden with GAS in Gothenburg. He played 1 game in the Cup, but will have benefited from being around a first team and being the backup keeper there. So yeah, they're back at Town. Could well go out again though if they find the right home.
Okay, that brings us to the sexy stuff then, boys. The ins, that's what we all want to talk about. And we can start with a quite exciting potential signing. A young winger from Barnsley called Luke Thomas. Stuart Watson, tell us all about this.
Yeah, Andy's a bit closer to this still than I am, but led to believe that this is reasonably advanced. Andy, is that right?
Yeah. I'd be surprised if this one wasn't done at some point in the not too distant future. We were talking about this prior to Christmas, sort of mid-December time. I think he thought he might be going to Sunderland, as is the case with all of these players being targeted by top-end League One clubs. There's a small pool of players, but it looks like he's coming to Ipswich. He's left-footed, can play on either flank, and he's quick, likes to run with the ball, and it's kind of what they need, really. Because Stu, we've been talking about adding creativity and a bit of guile, a bit of craft in that final third, Stu, and that's what they need, isn't it?
Yeah, the word you use there, pace, is the one that jumps off the page for me. I know they've got Caden Jackson, but I think without Kane Vincent-Young, they've lacked a little bit of dynamism, a little bit of pace, someone that can break the lines. They're trying to add creativity because Ipswich have scored 23 league goals, which is one of the lowest totals in the division. Yes, they're keeping the ball really well, but when they've got to the final third, they're not creating quality chances. I think in the expected goals table, they're down in 14th. So that tells you about the type of chances that they're creating. Luke Thomas will hopefully, he looks very quick, very direct. He's provide a little bit of left-footed balance, and crucially, he won't be counting towards the salary cap as well, because he's 21, but he hadn't turned 21 at the start of last year. So ticks a lot of boxes, bit of championship experience. Hopefully that gets done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think Barnsley, are looking to recruit, which would then allow him to go out. He's played a fair amount of football for Barnsley this season, 20 appearances he's made, which we've talked about Ipswich trying to get away from bringing in players who haven't played for months on end, haven't we? And he's not too many starts, but he's been playing games, and he's got a season of League One football behind him as well from a good loan at Coventry a couple of years ago. So he ticks a lot of boxes. Obviously, if everybody's fit, wide options, you've got Keenan Bennett, Freddie Sears coming back into it, Gwion Edwards, and he's just going to add to that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, and hopefully, like you said, Stu, that can be done in the not too distant future.
Just picking up on that point, obviously Town's modus operandi, frustratingly in the past in these windows, has been, it seems to always leave things to the last minute and end up scrabbling to get things done. But very much there's a feeling they're looking to do work early in this window, Hutchie?
Yeah, it sounds like it. We do hear that every window, don't we? But I think I think some lessons have been learned, haven't they? And this is probably going to be the result of that. And hopefully, yes, they can do it early on.
Okay. One player who won't be joining Town is, of course, Ched Evans, the striker. I don't think was ever really seriously coming to Town. He's signed for Preston. But do Town need to sign a striker, do you think, Stewie, in this window?
Not for me. I think once Norwood is fit again and he's been back training this week along with a few others, I think he could be the in-house solution. As I said earlier, I don't think it's been strikers not taking chances. I think it's been the lack of chances that have been created. So you've got Norwood, you've got Hawkins as a target man option. I think Drynan has looked all right when in the times that he's played, linking the play up, and Caden Jackson as a pace option. So you've got 4 strikers there battling for one central spot. I wouldn't be rushing out to sign a striker.
Just before we move on, Hutchie, any more ins? You've got your ear to the ground, obviously. Anything else we can talk about on the ins at this juncture?
I think Thomas is the one that would be done sooner rather than later. I think Stu and I have both heard there may be another player kind of in the background that we need to do a bit more work on to find out who it is. But I don't think they'll stop at just one player coming in. But no, there's not. I don't think there's any names that we can necessarily give at the moment that we're particularly aware of. But no, I think there will be more than one, and hopefully not too far down the line as well.
Yeah. How many players do you think, Stu, they need to sign?
It sounds like, as Andy says, it will definitely be more than just Thomas. I think they will look to add a couple for that final third option, not strikers, but ones that can either play wing or number 10 that are kind of creative sparks. So I think Thomas will be seen as the wing option. I think they might even look for someone that can play versatile, either as the 10 or as a wide player. Does that sound a little bit excessive when you've got Edwards coming back, Teddy Bishop coming back, you've got Alan Judge in there as well? Normally, I would err against kind of adding players to the sake of it in January and ending yourself with a big squad and players kind of sat on their hands in the stands or on the bench. But this year is like no other. 28 games in 120 days as it stands. It's going to be Saturday, Tuesday, pretty much for 8 weeks straight, I think it is. So as much as we all hated the word rotation last season, I think it's going to have to come back to I think everyone's going to, the teams with the biggest squads are going to fare best in this second half of the season. So I'm all for kind of powering up the squad and making sure there's plenty in the armoury for the weeks ahead, because there'll be more injuries, that's for sure.
And boys, obviously, where there are ins, there's usually outs as well. We've talked about Curry and Ndaba already. Who's likely to depart Portman Road in this window, Hutchie?
You'd think, I think any further additions, certainly senior ones, are going to need departures for salary cap purposes. That's a new variable that we're looking at now. The obvious candidate is Janoy Danasian. I think, sadly, he hasn't let Ipswich down when he's played. He hasn't played as many games as maybe he should have done along the way, but it's pretty clear by this point that he's not a player that Paul Lambert, he doesn't fancy him. He doesn't see a spot for him. They've got no problem on calling on him when he's needed, but there are plenty of options ahead of him in Paul Lambert's mind. So it makes sense for Janoy if he can get out. Colchester are interested. Accrington are interested, his former club, and would have him back with open arms. That's both from in-house and the fans. But I think with Janoy, the wage that he's on here and how much of that Ipswich would like to recoup could potentially be the stumbling block over whether he gets an early move in this window or possibly a late one. But I think it's pretty clear that whether it's this month or further on into June when his contract expires, that his Ipswich career doesn't have too long left to run.
Can you see any of the young players going out on loan, perhaps, Stewie?
Possibly. I guess they'll maybe see how things settle down over the next couple of weeks, how the players that have had COVID have responded to that when they start playing again, how some of these players who've come back from injury, how they do. Possibly Idris El Mazouni could go out on a second loan, didn't get as much game time as they liked at Cambridge. Certainly if they bring in a couple of players for those sort of creative positions, that might kind of see him right down the pecking order again. But as I said before, they need a bigger squad as possible. So it might just be wise to keep as many in the building as possible going forwards.
And how about, obviously, we talked at the start of the season, Flynn Downes particularly linked with a big money move away from Fortman Road. Is there any sort of chance that things like that may be rekindled, do you think, in this window, Hutchie?
It's not impossible, is it? I personally, I would be surprised, because those kind of players that we're talking about here, Flynn was one, Caden Jackson was another. Neither of them have enhanced their reputations over the last few months, because they've simply been out injured. Flynn hasn't played since he limped off at MK Dons, and Caden has had long breaks from action himself, only scored one goal. You'd think that would decrease their transfer value in the mind of outside influences, but I would hope that internally their value to this squad is still the same, particularly in Flynn's case. This is rather than Caden. I can't see a scenario where Ipswich are going to significantly drop their asking price enough to meet a significantly increased offer from elsewhere. I can't see that one marrying up in this window.
Okay, lovely. There you go then, boys. We'll leave it there. You're all up to speed. That's Town Transfer Talk episode 1 done. Your 10-minute little guide to everything going on transfer-wise in this silly season at Ipswich Town. I've been Mark Heath. With me, Andy Warren, Stuart Watson. Have a great weekend and join us again next week.